I'm tenacious. I build relationships and I attract people to, my energy of wanting to help people because I've been that person living a life of quiet desperation. So I've been running my finance business now since 2002. And from there, and when the pandemic hit, I ended up creating my Give a Heck brand. My last name is legally Heck, so I created the Give a Heck brand, wrote a bestseller.
Welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. As always, I have an incredible guest with us today. And before I introduce him, I just want to ask for a favor of all of you, anyone listening. I want to ask that if you get something out of this interview, if you get some type of value, some type of insight, a skill, information, or in the inspiration to go out and take action and keep on moving forward towards your goals, make progress in any of your four freedoms: physical freedom, emotional freedom, sentimental freedom, or financial freedom, I want to ask you to please share this episode with 10 people. Share it on social media, share the link on Facebook, on Instagram, on everywhere. Share it with 10 friends, since this is how we grow. This is how we're able to share our message and motivate, inspire, and bless others out there to change their lives and have it all. And today I have Dwight Heck, and he's on a mission to empower every people on with financial education so that they can live a more purposeful life. And at Give a Heck Financial, they educate and teach how to live life on purpose and not by accident. And this is accomplished by teaching financial education, like budgeting, having a proper life insurance protection in place, saving for your children's education, retirement, financial roadmap, and much, much more. I have today Dwight, who's an author, speaker, podcast host. He's been an entrepreneur for more than 30 years. I'm very excited to have you, Dwight. Thank you very much, man. And I really appreciate you, and you are welcome.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate being on. I'm excited for our conversation. Our pre-conversation before you hit record, it was fantastic. I can't imagine what the rest is going to be like. So let's have at her.
I'm excited. So, man, the first thing that I do with my guests is I tell them to walk us through their entrepreneurial journey in 75 seconds or less.
75 seconds or less. Okay. Well, my entrepreneurial journey started when I was 12. I was a paper boy. I learned how to, deal with clients that were unruly, unwilling to pay their bills. Fast forward that to a few more years. My dad's a very successful entrepreneur. I started working for him, and I kept on dreaming about being my dad. My dad, again, being a successful entrepreneur. Fast forward to my early 20s, I started a computer consulting firm and ran that firm for 9 years, and had a retail store as well for selling computers. But I ended up having health issues, and those health issues caused me to have to reflect that I needed to get out of that type of environment because it was very unforgiving. I could help 2-3 clients out, be very happy, and another client, 4 or 5, might not be happy because of the fact of their expectations were well above what I could deliver, not because I didn't have the experience, because of time. So I needed to learn, what did I need to do? And I had a friend reach out to me in 2002, 20 years ago, said, you know what, I know you want to leave the industry. how about you get into the finance game? And in the finance game, we're going to teach you how to get your own life in order. And, I kind of chuckled because he was right. I was a 6-figure earner, but I was still, like a lot of people, living with more month than money, more days of the
Yeah.
month than I had money in my account. And even though I was very successful, I didn't know the rules of the money game. Nobody had ever taught me how to live life on purpose and not by accident. So they started coaching me. Within 6 weeks, I fired my couple coaches I had because they were all about the transaction, whereas I was a guy that was always about the relationship, making
Okay.
sure I build strong relationships with people. The transaction should always be on the backside of anything to do with sales. It should be about building a relationship, getting to know people. So I developed a process and system through communicating with people, going out and asking questions and asking, do you know anybody else that can help me out? And I created a small network of people and went from being a person in the first year that made on commission made $8,000. And after that first year was over, within 5 months, I made $150,000. Right?
Nice.
Why? Because I'm tenacious. I build relationships and I attract people to, my energy of wanting to help people because I've been that person living a life of quiet desperation. So I've been running my finance business now since 2002. And from there, and when the pandemic hit, I ended up creating my Give a Heck brand. My last name is legally Heck, so I created the Give a Heck brand, wrote a international best-selling book, have a podcast, and I'm a speaker as well.
Nice. Awesome. Well, you nailed it. All right. And there's a lot to talk about, right? So you were learning about, so all right, so you left the computing consulting, the computer business and consulting and retail, right? You left that when, like, in your 20s, to leave to the financial, right? And you said that, like, the problem that you had on the previous business was with time. So tell me about that. What do you mean with like time?
Yeah, well, I left that. I was in that industry until in my early 30s, started in my mid 20s. What I mean by that is you can be a leader, you can be a boss. I had staff, right? I had people I overlooked at the different consulting gigs. I'd get hired to do work for the police. I did work for them. I did work for the government where I live. I did work for different people. The problem is I had a hard time letting go. So there was a job, let's say there was a server that needed to be set up, or firewalls, networking stuff that needed to be set up. And people would never do it at the same level that I would do it at. And I was impatient. I wasn't necessarily the best teacher at that time in my life. So I just go, okay, well, go do this. I'd give them an easier task and I'd take on the tougher task instead of sitting them down and saying, this is the steps and processes that you need to do so you can be me, and not being me personally, but my knowledge level. So I ended up burning myself out, right? Because a lot of times we couldn't turn servers off or turn networks off during the workday. So it would be in the evenings. So I'd work till the wee hours of the morning, or I'd work a whole weekend, yet I still needed to be there bright and early at 9 o'clock, right? So there was nothing for me to work. I'd sometimes, honestly, Alex, I'd work 4 or 5 days without sleep. I'd get a change of clothing, I'd shower, because I did not want to let anybody down. But the person that was most important that I was letting down was me. And it was affecting my mental and my physical health. Thus, it was affecting my kids. And I needed to realize 5 kids, I needed to be more present. But even when I was present with them, Alex, my time within my brain was thinking about that job. Oh my gosh. I left the people there to do that. Are they doing it right? Hopefully I'm not going to get a call. You know what I mean? So there's so much more details to it than that, but that's basically what it is. I was killing myself slowly with time. I forgot my core values that I learned from when I was a kid, which are faith, family, and work. And I became my father, who was a workaholic, right? So my father's was work, work, work. when I promised myself I'd never fall into that trap as an entrepreneur. And I did. And I fell into that work instead of faith being number one, my family number two, and work number three. Because really, at the end of the day, why do we work? We work to pay the bills, to give ourselves and our family a nice standard of living, maybe be able to donate money to charity, to help out family when they need it, or whatever the case may be. But work, and all that money does nothing for you if you lose your health, and you lose that time that you can never get back with your family. My kids were growing up. So when I had my kids, because at that time when I got into, when I started the computer company, I was married. By the time I ended up closing it, I was already separated and getting divorced. I wasn't present with my kids mentally. Physically, I'd be sitting there, we'd be breaking bread with one another, maybe watching a TV show or playing a game or outside playing, but my brain was always worried about money and are the right things happening, right? And it took a toll on me. And in 2001, just around when 9/11 happened, I had a severe health issue, and I got, at the end of September, I got rushed to the hospital. I had people tell me, you know what, you need to change things. This time, this way that you're living life, work. Even when you're not working, your brain is still at work.
Yeah.
You're not present with those that love you, that need you. And what do you want out of life? And God spoke to me and said, you know what, when you were young, what did we talk about? Faith, family, work. You've become your father. Your father is a great man. He's done well. My dad was one of 18 kids, grew up in the Depression. There was a reason that he worked. He was always afraid. He had that scarcity mentality that he was going to lose it all. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, he basically, that's what happened with the time issue. I become my father, those learned patterns, those learned behaviors. I became a workaholic, and I put family not even in the top 3. Sometimes they weren't even in the top 10, and my mindset was always stuck on work. So, those health issues forced me to have to reevaluate and pivot. And I had some very influential mentors of mine tell me I needed to smarten up. And one of them was the guy that got me into the finance game.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think like this is really important, right? Because like right now, man, with this wisdom that you're sharing, if people are able to like take it in and like feel it, you're literally saving their lives. Because I like, I've heard a lot of men talk about how they worked to make money, and then got sick, and then they had to use that money to get back their health, right? Which is like doesn't make sense, right? And there's a lot that we can talk about from here, right? And so what does putting faith and then family and work mean for you? Like now that you are, more aware and that you've been able to realize that, how does that look? How does faith, family, work look for you? How does that translate into your life, into your everyday life?
Well, my everyday life will start with faith, because that is my number one thing. I wake up every day and I thank God for being alive, for giving me another shot, another opportunity to make a difference in my life. Because if I make a difference in my life and I have gratitude and I'm grateful, I can serve and uplift his children, which I'm one of. And by serving others and I do things the right way, it comes back to me. So my faith starts me off that way. I thank God. I have a gratitude, gratefulness exercise I put myself through before I even put my feet out of bed, right? Usually 30 minutes before I get out of bed, my alarm's even gone off. I wake up naturally. And then the first thing I do is I start being grateful. I'm grateful for things as simple as brushing my teeth, having arms to be able to do stuff like that, being able to have a bathroom when so many people around the world, even in our local communities, live in poverty. So I'm grateful that God gives me another shot and has given me everything that I have: a roof over my head, 5 great children, 4 grandbabies, one new one on the way right away. And, so that's how my faith starts. Again, for those that aren't faith bearing, don't believe in God, I'm not here to judge you. I'm just telling you who I am and what's worked for me. God has helped me through so many tumultuous times in my life, from being bullied as a kid to having health issues to getting divorced to raising my kids eventually as a single dad. That eventually happened in 2008. I ended up, God was the first thing. And every time I stop and don't think about my faith first thing in the day and thank God, sometimes I wake up and I'm in a rush or something happens and I get disrupted from my normal routine. And it does happen. I'm human. And halfway through the day, Alex, I'll be going like, geez, why do I feel off? And it'll be like a light bulb. Oh my gosh, I forgot to have gratitude. I forgot to welcome Jesus into my day. I forgot to thank God for allowing me to be alive part of me. Right. And those routines keep me in check with my faith. And then even with the pandemic, I go to church. Not saying people that don't go to church are bad people, because standing in a church doesn't make you a good person. Standing in a garage doesn't make you a car, right? Bottom line, you need to practice faith. So I go to church because to me, I'm a little bit closer to God. During the pandemic, it was tough because I had to watch it on, I watched it live on TV. But yeah, so that's how I keep my faith in check, because if I don't have that, if I aren't taking care of myself, my heart, my mind, and my soul, if I'm not taking care of that, it's pretty hard to stay in tune to the family. Meaning, remember I talked about the fact of being present? Those 3 core values help me be present. On this call right now, I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about myself and our wonderful conversation. I'm present. But in order for me to be present, my faith has to be solid. I have to believe that God has bigger plans for me and bigger plans for Alex. And our unity together is going to be an explosive thing that can help so many more people, right? So that faith component is so important to me and my family needs me to have my faith solid, right? Because they're watching us. Your kid, your little 3-year-old's watching you. Even at their age, they're picking up patterns of behavior and energy. And I made mistakes, right? I didn't know the things that I know today as my kids were growing up. And I've learned and I've gotten stronger and stronger, and realizing that they're watching me. So whether they're faith bearing or not, so we'll go from the family. It always ties back to faith, whether they're faith bearing or not, or they go to church or they pray or whatever, they see how important it is to me. And that makes a difference in their lives. I honestly believe that God wants me to be an example. Even when they're adults, people say, oh, I've already taught everything my kids need to know. Bull. I say, that's bull crap, because at the end of the day, my kids are still watching me as adults. They still bring things up. They'll tell me, oh, I went and listened to this podcast interview, Dad, that you were on. Or, oh, Dad, I listened to this podcast that you had. Or, oh, Dad, like my book. Some of the things my kid, a couple of my kids that have read my book have said that's touched their lives, means that I'm constantly, my faith and believability in who I am and my convictions are still teaching and educating my children as I develop and strengthen my story even better every year. They're becoming better adults because I'm being vulnerable, and I'll admit to them when I'm wrong. Since they were younger, you know what? If I screwed up, I'd go up to them and say, you know what? I'm sorry I got upset. I'm sorry I shouted. I made a mistake. Dad's human, right? Let's talk about this, right? Because I'm also an empath too. That's something I've discovered over the last few years with some mentorship and coaching. I'm Ed Milet. You probably know who Ed Milet is. And if you don't, he's a wonderful man. Ed Milet was the one that told me, this is about 3 years ago in their Arte Syndicate, he posted some stuff and I posted, he said, what is your superpower? And I said, my superpower, Ed, is empathy. And he responded and says, oh my gosh, I've never heard anybody say that, but I have to agree. Empathy is a superpower. It's the ability to understand, relate, to pick up on a person's emotional state of mind, to listen to tonality, to watch body language, to understand when to listen more than talk. And it's something I've practiced. I didn't realize it. And since he brought that up, I reached out to people that are empath coaches, and I've started developing that skill more and more. right? And that ties specifically to my family, because my kids, when they were growing up, brother, I have 4 daughters and a son, right? So 4 daughters and a son. And I could feel my one daughter who radiates emotions. She'd be on the second floor of the house as a young teenager, and I could feel her emotional state. And I never knew why I was drained all the time and why felt just lethargic. And,
Why?
because all my kids, all their emotional states of mind of what they were going through, because we had gone through they had gone through the divorce. They now were not joint. They were full-time.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. Real quick, do you want to know how I've been using my podcast to build a multi-million-dollar network with over 100 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs, reach hundreds of my ideal clients with my message, coaching, service, and podcast, get invited to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months alone, through my own events, and have over 100 successful entrepreneurs being willing to speak at my events, become a millionaire in 1 year, get mentored by multimillionaires, and achieve goals that I thought were going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year, and ultimately get unstuck and make quantum leaps of progress in my business and life with less than 1 hour of work just by being myself. If you answered yes to any of those, I just want to invite you to a free training showing you how I've been able to build a multi-million-dollar network that is helping me achieve bigger income goals faster with only 1 hour of speaking and just being myself. To be honest, I thought I was going to be a multi-millionaire, speak on stages, throw my own events, and live a successful, happy, and fulfilled life of growth and impact in 10 years from now. That seemed so far away, but my podcast has been able to help me do that in less than 6 months. I'm actually doing all of that this year at the age of 21 with my podcast. I'm reaching thousands of people with my message, my service, my podcast, my coaching. I've gotten booked to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months. And on these stages, I'm going to be getting in front of hundreds of my ideal clients, making roughly around 15 to 30K plus per event. Not only that, I have a network of over 100 high-level, multi-million-dollar entrepreneurs who have all agreed to speak at my events. Getting clients is a problem of the past. I've gotten the opportunities to learn from billionaires, and I'm collapsing decades of time, and I'm literally achieving what I thought was going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year. All of this because I use podcasting as a networking tool, and I leveraged a rare concept called the cloak track. And I want the exact same thing for you. Just imagine where you could be in 1 year from now if you get this free training right now. That is why I'm inviting you to this training. On this short training, you're going to learn how a small group of purpose-driven entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, course creators, and speakers have combined podcasting with this rare concept called the cloak track to build a multi-million-dollar network, reach thousands of their ideal clients with their message, books, courses, coaching, make an extra $118,800, get booked on 10 stages, and build a successful network of entrepreneurs who speak on their stage. All of this in under 6 months. I'm going to walk you through the 4 steps to make this work. Step number 1, alignment. Getting clear on who you want to be, what you want to do, your goals, your purpose, and aligning all of this with building your podcast and your ideal podcast guest. Step number 2, leveraging the cloak track to find your ideal podcast guest and never running out of them. Step number 3, leveraging the cloak track to close an interview with anyone, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem. And step number 4, the content machine. The content machine is the key to tapping into other people's audiences. And I'm going to show you all of those 4 steps. The link to access this free training is in the description of this video. Click on it and go watch this training right now so that you can learn how you can too build a multi-million-dollar network that helps you achieve bigger goals faster and with less effort. Note, this training is only available to 18 people, so act right now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Bye-bye.
Custody, living with dad, dealing with all that emotional pattern strife they got from the improper way they were raised by their mom when they were with her, right? I still am close to all of them. All 5 of my kids are still tight in my life. And that emotional energy that they were trying to figure out and cope with the stuff they went through, and they had abandonment issues. They had different things that they were struggling with. I picked up on all that stuff. So it drained me because I'd accept it all in, not necessarily knowing what was going on. I was like a huge antenna for it, right? An empath is.
A receptor,
we're an antenna. Yeah. So we're a receptor. So over the last years, I've learned to deal with being an empath even better, to ensure that I take care of the one person that needs to be taken care of the most. And that's me.
You.
And that it's not being selfish. It's being
Selfless.
self-present. Yes. In order for me to serve and be a great human and continue to be the best version of myself for others, I need to take care of me. I need to have proper nutrition, proper exercise. I need to be listening to positive, uplifting books, podcasts. I need to keep my faith, again, first and foremost, right? All these things that I'm talking about, make sure that my faith stays solid, my family's never left behind, that I'm able to service them better. And as I do that, it continually gives me energy. It's like a perpetual motion motor. It gives me energy so that the third thing, my work, is service the best, because now when I'm building relationships with my clients, I'm sitting at a kitchen table with a wife and a husband that are having marital problems, or they're having problems with a kid. I can give them advice if they ask for it, right? We'll talk about it. I'll work through and goal set with them. I'll figure out why they are where they are, right? Maybe they're at a job they don't like, and I can suggest them, maybe, what are you good at? We can talk about being an entrepreneur on a side. And then I can direct them to, like we talked, Tony Watley, a good friend of mine, who is Side Hustle Millionaire book, which is amazing.
Yeah.
To help them learn how to set up the structures of being a side hustle millionaire. Because I understand what a side hustle is. I started originally in the computer game to backtrack a little bit, as a side hustle when I was working. I graduated from electronics engineering, got my diploma in Canada here, and I was working for a company. And I started my computer business as a side hustle, working for them full time, because they couldn't find people that were knowledgeable, ethical, moral, and work their butts off. And I literally took over their computer contract for the company I was working for, so much so that 11 months later I had to quit. And I bought out another computer company, all started as a side hustle. So the reason I mention that is, listeners, don't ever think that you can't achieve things on your most valuable hours in your life, which are those outside the 9-to-5 job. Those hours are more precious and more valuable than any other hours. The only thing I needed to learn, and I've learned now years later, is to delegate. Some of those hours are family. Some of these hours are learning, so that I can, expand my knowledge base, my 6 inches between my ears. I need to continue to develop them. And then I also need to get proper sleep, right? Sleep is so important.
Awesome. Well, there's so much to talk about, but I'm going to go to a very unusual place. So first of all, let me just, reiterate everything that you said, right? So you learned the lesson, right? And instead of, time was catching up with you. Like, you had 24 hours in the day like everyone else, but you learned leverage, you learned to delegate, you learned to lead, right? And you also learned to put yourself first by working on your mind, your body, and your soul, right? By starting with faith, right? Being grateful. You mentioned being grateful, you mentioned doing things right, and you mentioned, gratitude and doing things right. That's why I say I have a positive attitude, I'm doing things right, I have no fear, and I'm grateful, because when I have a positive attitude, whatever it is that I do will be right, no matter the outcome, right? Because I did it with a positive attitude. And if I do things with a positive attitude, I'm doing things right. And if I do those things, there's nothing that I need to be fearful of. And when you combine that, you get a lot to be grateful for. And
think about fear, though. Fear is, I will add something, listeners and you. Fear is an acronym that stands for me. And every time I'm fearful now, face everything and rise. Face everything and rise. Every time
I thought you were going to say
fearful,
false evidence appearing real.
That is such an overused one, and it's true, but it's not as true as my mindset. When I feel fearful about what I'm going to try to accomplish, or something comes at me, somebody attacks me, let's say in a conversation or in print or whatever, I think to myself, why am I fearful of this? I just need to face everything and rise.
Nice.
Right. And I've developed that over the years as a mindset. And does it work all the time? Absolutely not. But it works a majority of the time. Yeah. So sorry for interjecting, but when you brought up fear, I figured everybody needs to have one more tidbit of something where they can help strengthen their mindset.
Thanks for that, man. I appreciate it. So putting yourself first, right, by working on your mind, body, and soul, then family, then freedom, right? So actually, when you're young and you don't have kids or anything like that, the way you should do things, and like there's no should or shouldn't, right? Like it's just like an idea, is go work on your physical freedom first, right? Mind and body, then emotional freedom, which is which is you, like your inner you, your faith, your who you are, right? And then financial freedom, with those two will give you the capacity to work on your financial freedom. And then your sentimental freedom, right? That once you have figured those three out first, then you can go out and look for the woman that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, right? But if you're already married, like me, then the first thing that I focus on is my physical freedom, myself, then my emotional freedom, right? My spirituality, my emotions, like me, getting to know me, getting in tune with who I am. Then my sentimental freedom, right? Like those last two changes, instead of going for my financial freedom first and then my sentimental freedom last, I changed that to my sentimental freedom and then my financial freedom. So yeah, putting yourself first, man, that's, like a lesson that has been repeated, over and over and over again, that I hope, people not only understand from an intellectual level, but internalize emotionally and become that, right? Like I hope that this that we're talking about becomes part of everyone who is listening to. But I want to ask you about is empath. You said empath, right? Being a receptor.
Yep.
So there's an empath. So what is the other thing that exists? You're an empath.
Well, if you're not an empath, you're selfish. Like, let's be real. If you're not an empath, to me, right? I'm not an empath coach or anything, but for me, you're very entitled. You have an entitled personality. It's always you're in a conversation and you're thinking about, what am I going to say? That person's talking to you. You're not even present in the conversation. You're not looking at their mannerisms. You're not listening to their tonality. You're not watching if they're leaning forward when you're talking and they got a smile on their face, or they're leaning back. You're literally thinking, oh, I can't wait till it's my turn. I can't wait to add things. I can't, right? That's the opposite. So that's somebody that's more selfish. They're more entitled into themselves, that they think that everything they need to talk about or say or drop is more valuable than the person that's communicating with them. So I've worked on that. I can sometimes struggle with it, just like anybody. So an empath, though, is somebody that is always looking to ensure that that person they're communicating with can't wait to see them again. And here's what I mean by that. If a person's talking to me and we're having a great conversation, we don't always have to agree on everything, but I can be respectful and polite in my responses. And that person that I'm dealing with, hopefully they're the same. So when we leave that conversation and I see them again, I'm excited. I can't wait to see them again. And hopefully they're the same way. I call that the 70-30 principle. The 70-30 rule for me is, if Alex and I are touching base with one another, and Alex and I are communicating, and 70% of the time, whether it's in print, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's a video call, whether it's a phone call, 70% of the time, Alex and I need to resonate with one another. We need to appreciate one another. And 30% of the time, if we don't necessarily agree, we're respectful of one another, and we can still walk away. We can respect the fact that one person is, let's say, an atheist, one person's God-fearing. We can still love the atheist can still love us, but 70% of our commonalities or our connections are always good. Does that make sense? So that when we leave that circumstance, again, whether it's print, video, phone call, whatever it is, we respect one another enough. We can't wait. And when we say, you know what, I look forward to talking to you again, Alex, I'm saying it with a genuine heart, brother. I'm saying it with all the, the confidence that I'm being a truthful, honest, sincere gentleman, as you talk about, and I can't wait to talk to you again. But if we ever get to a point where we're 50-50, Alex, you and I won't communicate anymore. I'll be done. Because if 50% of the time you're causing me emotional, right, mental and emotional strife, it's not worth it. Life is in session. This is not a dress rehearsal. Time is always going on. And I want to give my time to somebody that's respectful to me. I'm respectful to them 70% of the time, because it can never be 100% of the time. I just don't believe that's a reality. That's a way lofty expectation. So as an empath, now that I understand what I am and I've been a student of human nature, of like watching body language, listening to tone, watching people's eyes, and just watching their whole person. And then I'm cognizant about how I am, my tone, my body. Am I leaning forward? Am I smiling? Is my tone variant, or am I just monotone? Am I eyes darting around everywhere? Am I not really paying attention to Alex? And once Alex is done talking, I'm ready to do my yammering, my talking, and I'm not really present in the moment. That is not a great relationship, right? For either of us. 70-30 is the way I live.
Got it.
That makes sense.
Awesome. So yeah, that was great insights that you share. Does being a receptor have anything to do with like some kind of spiritual thing?
I don't know. I've never really thought about that. I think, yes, it probably would be, because God always has, a reason for everything that we are and who we are. Sometimes we don't necessarily know how to tune into it. We don't know exactly what it is, but I think God wanted me to be an empath. He wanted me to be that person. Let's dial it back to when I was talking about my kids, and I could pick up on stuff, and I could console them, and I could be that person that could listen to them and give them advice. And then I got better as the years went on. I didn't, again, necessarily know that I was an empath, but I think God wanted that, because my kids, in many ways, were damaged from the, unhappy marriage into an unhappy divorce circumstance. And so God wanted me to be that person, to be that sounding board for them, to be that person that knew when to listen and knew when to respond. When he knew, a person that knew when to be firm and knew when to forgive or ask for forgiveness, because, I'm not perfect. None of us are, right? So that's basically bottom line. I think, yeah, I have to that would be my response to you, that God absolutely wanted me to be an empath. I just needed man or humankind to acknowledge that. And that started back quite a few years ago, with a gentleman by the name of Ed Milet acknowledging the fact that empathy is a superpower. And then me being so touched by that I went out and sought how I could tap into that, how I could utilize it, right? And we always pray to God, Alex. We pray to God for, God, help me do this and help me do that. God brings people to us in the season that it needs to be. And God brought Ed in that conversation on an Instagram post to me, so that I could be the catalyst I needed to go to stop being camped in my mindset and start climbing again. Right? The climb is one of the most important things in our lives. And sometimes we struggle to do the climb on our own, and we pray, universe. If you're not a person that believes in God and you're listening to this, you pray to the universe. Well, okay, great. You're praying to the universe. But guess what? If the universe sends you what you need, or God sends you what you need, have your eyes open wide enough to go, wow, I prayed for it. He sent somebody to me, and that was Ed. And then other people after the fact over the last few years that I've connected with, and I've had the pleasure of even interviewing a couple empaths coaches on my podcast, right? So everything happens for us, not to us, and everything happens for a reason, right? Just like the pandemic, everybody says it was terrible, and absolutely it was. But where are people on the outside of the pandemic 2 years later? Did you sit back and you felt sorry for yourself, or did you pivot Did you look for resources? Did you look for people that were willing to support you and give you good advice? I did. The first
Yeah.
few weeks, I didn't. Why? Because I was struggling emotionally. I was, and I had somebody like Tony. It was great. And all the group within his society that were supportive of me, that helped me pivot. And because of Tony being the spider and the spider web going out from there, I met so many good people that don't even know Tony, just because of the network and connections, and right, to develop a podcast, to write a book, to develop more things for my financial business, to increase my speaking ability, to practice it, right, to be a better speaker, to be a better storyteller, right? That's where I am on the outside of the pandemic. Now, if you're a person listening and you were stuck the last 2 years, I'm not here to judge you. There's only one person that has a right to judge you, and he's not walking on this planet right now, right? So bottom line, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to tell you that if a simple man like me, a single dad of 5 kids that raised him to adulthood, can figure it out even after the fact and continue to realize that sometimes I'm camped in my mindset, but I know that I need to reach out to others, or I need to have the proper associations, again, from books, podcasts, whatever, to continue to always climb, because the worst thing you can be in life is camped. Now, if you've been camped the last couple of years, again, I'm not here to judge you, but I'm here to tell you, I believe in you. You have it within you. If you're listening to Alex's podcast, you have it within you to reach out to people that can make a difference and help you live life on purpose and not by accident.
Awesome. Awesome, Dwight. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, man. Let's see. My internet is unstable. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, it breaks up a little bit, but it's not too bad.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Once in a
All right.
while, once in a while, your voice and your video aren't connected. So you'll be talking and your mouth isn't keeping up with it.
Okay. What about now? Now it's good?
Yeah. For a second there, you froze though, completely. So you're back now.
All righty. There you go. Cool. So I was able to listen to everything that you said, but like I had like a notification that's saying your connection is unstable. But okay, I think we're good, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So man, yeah, thanks for sharing all of that. And I have 5 questions for you. All right. And the first one is, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self if you could?
Well, the advice that I give my 20-year-old self would be to listen more and be present in all conversations, as I just mentioned. Because, as a 20-year-old person, we think we know it all, or our information or what we're talking about is more important than the other person. I tell my 20-year-old self to listen more. And also, as a secondary thing, I'd also tell my 20-year-old self that, you don't have to do it all on your own. There's so many good people out there that are willing to support, whether it's an adult around your same age or older adults. I coach people in their late teens into their 20s, right? Because why? Because there's some place that I wasn't in my 20s. They understand they don't have to go it alone. They don't have to know it all, that there's people out there that are genuinely into building relationships and want to help people, circumvent 5, 10, 15, 20 years of being camped in their mindset and living a life on a hamster wheel. So listen and realize you don't have to do it on your own would be the 2 best pieces of advice I'd give my 20-year-old self.
100%. I totally agree, man. You don't have to do things on your own, right? And the way you realize that is by listening.
Exactly. Yeah, and you listen to people and you get, it's surprising though what people, if you actually listen, even in a most mundane or drawn out conversation, there's always a nugget of information that you can extract from it if you really are open-minded to understanding that somebody might know something you don't know, or they may know the same thing but they know it at a higher level, on a higher level of existence, or a higher plane of knowledge. And they might, iron sharpens iron, right? So bottom line, other people can help you continue to level up and grow and climb in life. Never discount the value of others, and that you don't need to be by yourself on your own.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And the next question is mindset. So what is one mindset shift, Dwight, that you've had that you think has contributed and is contributing to your success?
One mind shift would be what I just mentioned, right? But I'll tie it into something. So what I talked about, the fact that, you don't need to do it on your own, and that there's people out there that are compassionate and caring. In order to understand that and the mindset, you need to understand associations. And associations aren't just about who you associate with on the daily, like people. Associations to what you listen to, what you watch, what you read. And if you're not a reader, what are you listening to? Good books, right? If you're feeling sad, do you listen to pouty, sad music, or do you listen to and watch television shows that are just gonna, throw gas on your fire, that are gonna enhance your mindset of being negative? So associations are so key. You need to make sure that you're listening and watching and associating with things that are uplifting, that are going to help, squash out that negativity in your brain, or at least give you a tool that helps you have appreciation or gratitude for where you're at. So I think that's biggest thing that I've learned in my mindset shift, is that I need to constantly always evaluate everything in my life that I associate with, that is coming into my senses, if that makes sense.
Nice. Yeah. Your environment, 100%. I agree. Great advice, man. And Map, do you have any advice for people who may lack or need clarity in their life?
Yeah, if you're a person that lacks or needs clarity in your life, talk to people.
Let's see. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your picture's completely froze. Oh, now you're back. Yeah, now I can see you. You back?
All right, there. So did you listen to the question? Map.
Yeah.
Clarity.
Yeah. So if somebody is struggling with clarity, depending on what the clarity they're struggling with. So you weren't specific about that. So let's say somebody is struggling with clarity of purpose of faith, family, and work. Just the 3 core values, right? Well, seek out people that aren't unclear about their faith and talk to them, have conversations, and make sure you have conversations with more than one person, because everybody's opinion doesn't always need to be your reality. Get more than one piece of information, whether it's with your faith or it's your family. You're worried about how you parent or how you're raising your kids, or whether or not you should have kids. Talk to people that have had kids. Talk to people that don't have kids. Find out what is good about it, the good, bad, and ugly in their opinion, and the good, bad, and ugly of not having kids. And work the same thing. Let's say you're unsatisfied in your job and you've been offered an uptick. You've been offered a promotion, but you don't understand if it's really what you want. You're really happy in what you're doing, possibly, or you're not happy and they've offered you a promotion. Talk to people that have been doing something that you want to do 1 year longer, 3 years longer, 5 years longer, 10 years longer. And if they're miserable, guess what? It could be a great indicator that you might not be happy in that as well. So it's always good to talk to people that have a different opinion of clarity of what you're trying to achieve, whatever purpose you're trying to accomplish, right? So whether it's faith, family, work, I communicate with people and find out, if my clarity isn't sound, I ask them advice, because guess what? Knowledge is hidden unless you ask for it, right? And people with good, kind hearts are more than willing to share their knowledge and their clarity on a specific circumstance, and it can help uplift you. Again, the last thing though, make sure you talk to more than one person. Don't take what one person says as gospel. Always seek more than one answer, so that you have the ability to have your mind take that and decide what's the direction and focus you're going to take at that point.
Awesome. I love that. Mindset, Map, motion. So what is one habit that you have, Dwight, that you think is contributing to your success?
Well, biggest habit I have, we touched on it and I will touch on it again, is the fact that I wake up and I thank God for being alive. I welcome Jesus into my life. And then I do a gratefulness exercise where I have gratitude for all the little simple things. And I think that has helped me tremendously. It sets my day off right when I swing my feet out of bed and I stand up to go and use the washroom to get ready for the day. My energy level's higher. And one thing I didn't add, I also, when I go to bed at night, again, I'm not judging people that don't, but for me, I pray. And with that prayer, when I'm done my prayers, I have gratitude and I'm grateful for it. And I actually evaluate my day. And I think to myself, what do I need to, what do I need to do different tomorrow? I had this bad moment and I allowed it to capture me and hold me for X amount of period of time. So if you don't mind, I'll share a little lesson that I do for people and I coach on. I never ever have a bad day anymore, Alex.
Okay.
Why? Because I choose not to. I have bad moments within my day. And then how do I deal with those bad moments? I time myself out. I literally will be sitting here. I will leave my computer. I'll go sit on my couch. I might make myself a cup of tea or a coffee, and I'll sit there. My dog will lay beside me, and I'll close my eyes, and I'll just think about, I'll analyze, why am I allowing this person or this circumstance or what was sent to me get me riled up? And sometimes if that doesn't work, then I'll put on a positive podcast or I'll put on an audible book. I'll do something back to that association. What am I associating with? What am I doing to change my state? And if a person tells themselves, I'm having a bad day, even if anything prior to that, them saying that was a good, it overshadows all of it. It's like putting a wet blanket on it and just smothering it out. So if you learn to tell yourself, I'm having a bad moment, and you deal with that bad moment, and then when you go to bed at night and you think about it, and I'll say, God, thank you today. That was great. I had a great day. Guess what? I go to bed, my prayers, and then having that little bit of gratitude, gratefulness for the good things that happened. And then realizing, I had a bad moment and I dealt with it through the day. Let's give my brain a few seconds just to absorb the fact and give myself a pat on the back and say, good for you, Dwight. You dealt with that bad moment. You didn't let it grip you. You didn't say, I've had a bad day. You didn't tell people I had a bad day. When they ask you, how was your day? You know what I say to them, Alex, and people laugh at me? I had some character building moments, right? I had some character building moments. What do you mean by that? Depending on who it is, sometimes it's a teachable moment, and I'll share with them. Well, how do you deal with that? Again, another teachable moment. I time myself out. I tell myself never that I've had a bad day. I've had a character building moment. And these are the things I do in my associations to level myself up so that I can get past that character building moment. And then I give myself a specific time frame, and everybody's time frame is different, that I allow myself to deal with that character building moment. And then I move on. That moment stuck right there. It didn't ruin my day. Now I have the ability to create positive moments and continue on. Got another character building moment. What am I going to do? If it's severe enough, I time myself out. If it's not severe, I can sometimes correct myself by listening to a book for 10 minutes.
Nice.
Or I'll stop doing what I'm doing on my computer and I'll go on to sometimes social media, but I'll go to a positive social media page like Ed Milet or Tony Watley, or I'll go even listen to some of my own podcasts where I've had a guest on that was uplifting and give me energy. And I'll listen to specific segments just to change my state like that. Right.
Nice. Yeah. And instead of like just ignoring that character building moment and brushing it off with, I don't know, with maybe some drugs or alcohol or, negative social media to forget about it, right? It'll come back, right? And instead of that, you like take a pause and you find out why, what was it? Like, how is that happening for you? How is that building your character? And then you change your state. I love that, man. Yeah, that's a great insight. great habits that I hope, people apply, because I definitely will. And the last question is measure. What do you think about measuring and tracking, Dwight?
Um, Depends what you mean. Measuring and tracking. Some people measure and track, are you talking about financial numbers? Are you talking about
Yeah, like
measuring and tracking your
KPIs, like
progress?
anything in your
Okay.
life. Yeah, like measuring and tracking whether it's life or business. What do you think about it? What are your
I
thoughts on that?
think I think it's important because if we don't track, you know, when do we know happiness? When do we know satisfaction? When do we know completion? Meaning, if you're
Mm,
not tracking and you're always on the hamster wheel of life and you're continuing on, and you're emotionally and financially spent before the end of the month's up, it's usually because you're not tracking the back to the fact of, bad moments versus bad days. Well, I'm tracking the fact that, wow, and I'm having gratitude at night. I'm tracking the fact, okay, yesterday I accomplished this, or today I accomplished this, and then tomorrow I got to do this. And I slowly see progress by tracking it. And sometimes tracking things involves having somebody that you're accountable to. Now, remember, listeners, accountability is being accountable to that person. It's somebody holding you accountable to your dreams, aspirations, and goals. Because I do a lot of goal setting with people, my clients, over the last 20 years. And I do it for myself. And I talk them out loud. I say to people, this is what I'm going to accomplish. This is what I'm going to do. And they hold me accountable. They keep me on track, right, to what I want to achieve. So bottom line, we need to understand that, we need to track things. We need to put it down on paper, whether it's your goals of what you're trying to achieve, or if it's let's say you want to get to a certain goal in your business and it's not financial, it's just a certain stature, or now all of a sudden it can be financial. How much sales do you need to accomplish? You're at a career or a job, you want to make an X amount of money, right? If you don't track it, how do you know when you've arrived?
yeah, exactly.
How do you know when to celebrate? Right? That's
Mm-hmm.
another thing. So many people, when I was in that work phase, I never celebrated stuff, Alex. And our mind, like, when do we know that we're happy?
Yeah.
When do we know that we're like, wow, look what I accomplished, right? And it's not about ego. It's about the fact that we need to celebrate the wins. And that win isn't always with a job either, or a career. It's back to that faith, family, work. For me, it's
Nice.
always about that. Celebrate the wins in my faith because I remembered to have gratitude today. Celebrate the wins, that I did it when I went to bed. Celebrate the wins that I spoke with my grandkids today, or my adult children reached out to me and they were checking up on me. It wasn't necessarily me having to give, they were giving to me. And then my work, I need to celebrate those wins. I need to have those victories, but I need to be able to look at it and go, this is my goal by this time. Every day, I've got a little bit farther, a little bit farther. Guess what, listeners? If you don't reach your goal target date, that's okay. If you're tracking and you're getting closer and closer to it, right? Sometimes you're going to hit it before the date. Sometimes it'll be a few days after because of circumstances that you couldn't foresee that came about. But if you're progressing every single day, and then when you finally hit that goal, celebrate it. Don't celebrate too long, but celebrate it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. And then humans are all about progress. So like that, try if you track and you see that you're making progress, then you'll be motivated to keep on going, right? So Dwight, I know that there's a lot more that we can talk about, right? And you're going to be like the second person that I tell this to, but yeah, it would be great to like record a second episode to with you, right? To dive a little bit deeper into what you do. We didn't get to do that as much, and I would love to get to do that in another episode. But I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the wisdom that you dropped on everyone, on us, on me. I have a lot of notes of things that I'm going to be implementing. And if someone out there also found this valuable and they want to know more about what Dwight Heck is all about, where should they go, man?
The best place to reach me, Alex, I made it very simplistic. In the last couple of years, I had a website developed, which is a portal design. Just go to giveaheck.com. So giveaheck.com, giveaheck.com. There's portal buttons you can click on. Financial, you can click on financial education, you can click on speaking, you can click on finding out about my book, how to get it. And for those of your listeners, if they want to, they can also go to dwightheck.com/give-a-heck. And if they want to pay the shipping and handling, I will personally send them a signed copy of my book for free. Right? Just cover the shipping and handling, and I'll get it out to you in a few days. Again, that's dwightheck.com/give-a-heck. And obviously, you can also, there's a link on it on the website on giveaheck.com where you can order it from Amazon as well, if you prefer to do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. We'll have that information wherever this appears. And yeah, unless you have anything else to say, man, thank you very much for being here. And we can call this, a great podcast, another one in the books. So yeah.
God bless you, brother. Thanks for having me on. I so appreciate you.
Thank you, man. I'll see you later.
See you later.
Thank you for watching the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms